Minsu stared at the ceiling of his small room. It was white and plain, like everything else on the research outpost. He was far from home, far from the busy streets of Busan and the sound of the ocean. Here, the only sounds were the quiet hum of the machines and the soft rush of air from the vents. He got up and looked at the data screen on his desk. Glowing images of a giant alien creature floated in the air. This was his job. This was his patient. The file called her a biological asset, but Minsu saw a living being. She was the last Xylari queen, a majestic insectoid life form from a world now gone. A sickness had wiped out her entire race, her whole hive. Now she was here alone, and Minsu was hired to keep her healthy. A sharp beep came from his door. It was time for his meeting with Director Park. The director's office was as cold and tidy as the rest of the station. Director Park was a serious man with a stern face. He did not smile when Minsu walked in. "Minsu, you start your duty cycle today," Director Park said, his voice flat. "Your record is perfect. Your calmness rating is why you were chosen. The Xylari are sensitive to emotion. Panic and anger are dangerous. You will feel nothing but professional detachment. Is that clear?" "Yes, Director," Minsu said. "Good, your task is simple. Monitor her health. Adjust her food. Keep her environment perfect. You are a caretaker, a mechanic for a very complex machine. Nothing more." The director leaned forward. "There is one more rule, a very important one. No physical contact, none, do you understand?" Minsu nodded. "I understand. The scientists believe her telepathy is weak. It was only used to give orders to her workers. Without a hive, it is probably useless, but we do not take chances. You will not speak to her beyond basic calm instructions. You will not try to be her friend. Your job is to keep her alive and docile so we can learn from her. That is all." Minsu left the office feeling the weight of the rules. He was a kind person. He became a caregiver because he liked to help. The idea of treating a living queen like a broken machine felt wrong. But he was a professional. He would follow the orders. He walked down the long, clean hallway to the queen's enclosure. It was the largest room on the outpost, a huge biodome. The door hissed open and a wave of warm, humid air hit him. The air smelled strange, like wet stone and something sweet. He stepped inside and the door closed behind him. Minsu stopped and just looked. It was like stepping into another world. Giant crystal-like trees reached up towards the artificial sky. Soft, glowing moss covered the ground. In the center of it all was the queen. She was enormous. She rested on a raised platform of smooth black rock. Her body was long and elegant, covered in a shell that was the color of a dark sky filled with stars. It shimmered with hints of deep blue and purple as she breathed. She had many long, delicate legs tucked under her, and two large, multifaceted eyes that watched him without moving. She was terrifying and beautiful at the same time. The silence was the heaviest thing Minsu had ever felt. It was not a peaceful silence. It was a deep, hollow silence. It was the silence of a concert hall after everyone has left. It was the silence of a single person in a house built for thousands. He took a slow breath, remembering his training. "Hello," he said, his voice soft but clear in the quiet room. "My name is Minsu. I will be taking care of you." There was no response, no movement. Her giant eyes just watched him. He started his work. He checked the machines that monitored the air and temperature. He scanned the nutrient levels in the water that flowed through little streams in the enclosure. All the while he could feel her eyes on him. It was not a threatening feeling. It was a watching feeling, a studying feeling. He moved to the main console near her platform to check her direct food supply. The tube was connected to the base of her long neck. As he worked, his focus narrowed. His hands moved carefully, checking the connections and the flow rate. Without thinking, a soft sound escaped his lips. He was humming. It was an old song, a folk song his grandmother used to sing to him when he was a child in Busan. It was a habit he had when he was, concentrating deeply. He was checking a small screen on the console when he saw it. From the corner of his eye, he saw a twitch. He looked up quickly. The queen's head had moved just a little. One of her long, thin antennae, which had been perfectly still, was now trembling slightly. Then it happened. A picture flashed in his mind. It was not a memory of his own. It was someone else's memory. He saw a vast open space under a green sky. Thousands of creatures that looked like smaller versions of the queen were moving together, their shells clicking in a gentle rhythm, and he heard it. a deep, vibrating hum that came from all of them at once. It was a song. It was different from his grandmother's song, but the feeling was the same. It was a song of togetherness, a song of home. The image was gone as fast as it came. Minsu stood frozen, his hand still on the console. His heart was beating fast. He looked at the Queen. She was perfectly still again, her antennae back in their resting position. Her big dark eyes were fixed on him. Director Park was wrong. They were all wrong. Her telepathy was not weak. It was not just for giving orders. What he felt was a memory, a feeling. It was a cry of loneliness so powerful it had crossed the space between their minds. He had felt her secret. She was not a docile asset. She was a queen drowning in silence, and for 1 second his simple human song had thrown her a rope. Minsu finished his work slowly, his mind racing. He packed his tools and walked towards the door. He paused at the exit and turned back to look at her. "I will be back tomorrow," he said softly. This time he was sure he saw it. A very faint, soft glow pulsed once through the star-like patterns on her shell. It was there, and then it was gone. He walked out of the biodome, and the heavy door sealed behind him, locking the immense silence inside once more. But now Minsu carried a tiny piece of that silence with him, and he knew it was filled with a secret desire for a connection that no one else knew was there. The silence in Minsu's quarters was different now. Before, it was just quiet. Now it felt like an echo of the huge, hollow silence in the biodome. He could not stop thinking about the flash of the memory. The thousands of humming creatures, the feeling of a whole world together, and then, the nothingness that was left. He sat at his small desk and looked at the official file for the Xylari Queen. The words were cold. Subject displays minimal cognitive activity. Telepathic range limited to instinctual hive command. Recommend continued observation for biochemical extraction. Minsu closed the file. They had no idea. They were studying a symphony, but only listening for a single note. He thought about Director Park's rules. No talking, no contact, just a mechanic for a machine. The next day, when he entered the warm, humid air of the enclosure, he made a decision. He would break the rules. "Good morning," he said, his voice a little louder than before. The Queen was in her usual place on the black rock platform. Her star-filled shell shimmered as she breathed. Her large, dark eyes followed him. He started his work on the environmental controls. But this time he did not work in silence. "I am checking the air filters now," he said. "The humidity is a little high today. I will adjust it for you." He did not expect an answer. He just talked. He told her what he was doing as he moved around the biodome. He talked about the machines, the readings, the food mixture. It was simple, boring talk, but it was a voice in the silence. After a few days of this, he started talking about other things. "My home is a city called Busan," he said while cleaning a sensor. "It is on a planet called Earth. It is by the ocean. The ocean is a very, very big body of water. It is blue and gray, and it has a sound. It is a constant rushing sound, not like the quiet in here." He looked at her. There was no flash in his mind, no twitch of an antenna, but he felt a sense of attention. A listening another day, he was checking the nutrient lines. "I have a friend named Yuna," he said. "She is very smart. She understands how people talk. She would probably find a way to talk to you properly. She is back on Earth. I miss our talks." This time he saw it. A very soft, warm glow pulsed through the patterns on her shell. It was faint, like a dim light seen from very far away. It lasted for a second and then faded. It happened when he talked about missing his friend. A strange feeling grew in Minsu. He was not just a caretaker. He was becoming a friend, and she was so lonely. That night he used the private communication channel in his room. It was a direct line to Earth, away from the outpost's main logs. He called Yuna. The screen flickered to life, showing Yuna's face. She was in a messy room filled with books and data screens. She smiled when she saw him. "Minsu, how's the edge of space?" "Still boring?" "Not boring," Minsu said. He lowered his voice. "Yuna, I need to talk to you about something. It is about the Queen." He told her everything. About the flash of the memory. About the song. About him talking to her, and the soft glow when he spoke of connection. Yuna's playful smile was gone. She was now serious and focused. "Show me the official file on her communication," she said. Minsu sent her the data. Yuna scanned it quickly, her eyes moving fast across her own screen. They are wrong, Minsu, she said after a minute. This data, it only looks for one kind of signal. It is like they are only listening for shouting, and they have decided she is mute because she does not shout. But what if she whispers? What do you mean? Her species is a hive mind. They are all connected. What if their real communication is not giving orders? What if it is deeper? A sharing of feelings, of memories, a constant quiet song between all of them. The scientists would never find that with their machines. They are not looking for it. Minsu thought about the profound silence in the biodome. It was not empty. It was a silence that had once been filled with music. What should I do? He asked. Be careful, Yuna said. But keep talking to her. You are not just a voice in the silence, Minsu. You might be the first person who has truly listened to her in a long time. The next day, Minsu went back to the biodome with a new purpose. He did not just talk about his work. He brought a small, smooth stone he had found near the ocean a long time ago. He held it up for her to see. This is from the beach in Busan, he said. The ocean water made it smooth. It feels nice to hold. He did not throw it to her. He just placed it on the edge of her platform, a little piece of his world offered to hers. He continued his checks. He needed to inspect her physical body for any damage or stress. He moved closer to her than he ever had before. He used a scanner, its blue light moving over her shimmering shell. He was looking for cracks, for weak spots, and then he saw it. It was on one of the large, decorative plates that covered her upper back. It was a hairline fracture, so thin you could barely see it. It was not dangerous. It was like a tiny chip in a fingernail, but it was a flaw in her beautiful starry shell. As he looked at it, a feeling washed over him. It was not his own feeling. It was a wave of sadness, a feeling of shame. It was so clear and so strong that it made his own heart feel heavy. She was ashamed of this tiny imperfection. Without thinking, without remembering Director Park's most important rule, Minsu reached out. His fingers, covered in a thin work glove, gently touched the chitin around the tiny crack. It was not a clinical touch. It was a soft, reassuring touch. The kind of touch you use to tell someone that everything is okay. The moment he touched her, the world disappeared. A storm of feelings exploded in his mind. It was not a single image this time. It was a flood. First, there was a shock like a bright, cold light. Then, that shock melted into an overwhelming, powerful wave of gratitude. It was so strong it brought tears to his eyes. And underneath it all, he could feel it. A deep, aching, desperate desire. A desire for touch, for a connection that was not through a machine or a scanner. A desire for a hand, for comfort, for kindness. It lasted only a few seconds. He pulled his hand back, his breath caught in his throat. He stumbled back a few steps, his heart pounding. The queen, Luminara, shifted her great body. It was the biggest movement he had ever seen her make. She turned her head slowly, and her giant, dark eyes looked directly into his. He saw his own reflection in their many facets, and then a voice formed in his mind. It was not a sound. It was the idea. A name, Luminara, it was her name. Her true name. It was not the asset or the subject or the queen. It was Luminara, and with the name came more. A feeling of a beautiful shared dream that had been shattered. A feeling of being the last one left in a huge, empty house. A feeling of solitary confinement that had lasted for years. Minsu stood there, trembling. He finally understood her secret desire. It was not for power. It was not for escape. It was for what he had just given her. A moment of simple, kind contact. She wanted a bond. She wanted to not be alone anymore. He looked at her, at Luminara, and he knew nothing would ever be the same. The rules of the outpost, the orders of Director Park, they all seemed small and far away. He was not just a caretaker anymore. He was the only friend of a lonely queen, and he had just heard her whisper his name. The world outside the biodome felt like a dream. The clean white hallways and the humming machines seemed fake and unimportant. For Minsu, the only real place was the warm, humid world inside, with its crystal trees and its lonely queen. He did not tell anyone what happened. He could not. Saying it out loud would break the fragile magic of it. Director Park would have him removed from his post immediately. So he kept the secret in his heart. He carried the name Luminara with him like a precious stone. Their conversations continued. They were silent, made of feelings and pictures that passed between their minds. Minsu did not need to speak out loud anymore. He would think a thought and Luminara would understand. He learned about her people, the Xylari. He saw that the scientists were wrong about so much. The Xylari were not like ants with a queen who just gave orders. Luminara was the heart of her people. She was the weaver. She took the thoughts and feelings of thousands of individuals and wove them together into a beautiful, shared tapestry. She did not command. She connected. She created harmony. He saw the memory of the war that destroyed her hive. It was not a sickness. It was a violent attack from another starfaring race. They used weapons that shattered the psychic web of the Xylari. The connection was torn, and the silence that followed was a pain worse than death for her. She was the only one who survived, captured and brought here to this beautiful cage. As Minsu learned her truth, Luminara began to change. Her star-filled shell started to glow brighter. The soft light that pulsed through it was warmer, more golden. She began to produce a substance from glands near her mouth. It was a clear, sticky resin that smelled like honey and ozone. When it touched the air, it hardened into a beautiful, crystal-like material. Minsu saw this and felt a mix of wonder and worry.
He knew what this was.
From the shared memories, he understood. This was what a Xylari queen did when she was ready to build a new hive. She was preparing. She was hopeful. The scientists on the outpost were thrilled. They saw the brighter glow and the new resin as a breakthrough. They called it increased bioproductivity. Director Park gave Minsu a rare, thin smile. Your methods are unorthodox, Minsu, but the results are excellent. Keep doing whatever you are doing. This resin is a material we have never seen. It is incredibly strong and light. The corporate board will be very pleased. They saw a new product to sell. They did not see a queen preparing for a new family. Minsu felt sick. They were celebrating the signs of her hope, planning to profit from it. That evening, he went to her. He stood before her and he did not need to speak. He let his worry flow from his mind to hers. He showed her his fear of the director and the corporation. He showed her that these people did not want a hive. They wanted parts of her. Luminara's response was not fear. It was a wave of calm certainty. Then she showed him a vision. It was not a memory this time. It was a dream, a possible future. He saw a new kind of hive, not just for Xylari, but for many kinds of beings. He saw different creatures living together, their minds connected by Luminara's weaving. They shared strength, they shared knowledge, they shared comfort. It was a community built on choice and kindness. And in the center of this vision, he saw himself. He saw his own human mind, not being controlled, but acting as an anchor, a focus point. His human consciousness could give direction and stability to the vast, flowing network of the hive. Her secret desire was now a clear offer. She wanted to bond with him, not as a master to a servant, but as partners. She wanted him to be the first member of her new hive, the weaver's anchor. The idea was huge and terrifying. To join his mind so completely with an alien being, he could lose himself. His human mind could break under the weight of 1,000 other thoughts. It was the biggest risk he could ever take. While Minsu was wrestling with this choice, his luck ran out. He was in the biodome, not working, just sharing a quiet moment with Luminara. He was thinking about the sea again, and she was showing him a memory of a forest of glowing fungi on her world. They were so connected that he did not hear the main door open. Director Park stood there, his face like stone. He had seen them. He had seen Minsu standing there, not working, just staring at the queen with a look of deep connection on his face. And the queen was glowing softly, her head tilted towards him like he was her whole world. Minsu. The director's voice was cold and sharp. My office now. In the sterile office, Director Park did not sit down. He stood, his arms crossed. I have reviewed the security footage. You have been breaking every protocol. You spend hours in there not working. You are communicating with it. It is not an it, Minsu said, his voice quiet but firm. Her name is Luminara. The director's eyes widened in anger and shock. You have given it a name. This is exactly what I warned you about. You have become emotionally attached. You have compromised this entire project. She's not a project. She is a person. She is lonely and Enough. Director Park slammed his hand on the desk. I am reassigning you. You will have no further contact with the subject. You will be on the next supply ship back to Earth. Your career here is finished. Minsu's heart felt like ice. To be taken away from her now? To leave her alone again after she had just started to hope, it was a death sentence for her spirit. "You cannot do that," Minsu whispered. "I can and I have," the director said. "You have 24 hours. Pack your things and stay away from the biodome. If you try to go near it, security will stop you." The director turned his back, a clear sign that the conversation was over. Minsu walked back to his room in a daze. The walls of the outpost felt like they were closing in on him. He had 24 hours. One day, he thought about Luminara's dream, a hive of many beings living in harmony. He thought about the corporation, which would study her, take her resin, and when they learned all they could, they would take her apart to see how she worked. He thought about the deep, aching silence he had felt on his first day. He looked at the small, smooth stone from Busan that he kept on his desk. He picked it up. It felt solid and real in his hand. He had a choice. He could get on the ship and go back to his old life. It would be safe. Or he could take the biggest risk of his life. He made his decision. He would not leave her. He would trust her. He had 24 hours to become something more than human. The next 24 hours were the longest of Minsu's life. He moved through the outpost like a ghost. He packed a small bag, but not with the things the director would expect. He did not pack clothes or personal items. He put in a picture of his family, the smooth stone from Busan, and a data chip with a final message for Yuna. Everything else felt like it belonged to a different person, a person who was about to disappear. He waited until the ship's night cycle. The hallways were dim and quiet. Most of the crew were asleep. He knew the security routines. He knew when the guards changed posts. There was a small window of time, just a few minutes, when the area near the biodome was less watched. His heart was a loud drum in his chest as he slipped out of his room. He moved quickly and quietly, sticking to the shadows. He could hear his own breathing, fast and shallow. This was it. There was no going back. He reached the final hallway leading to the biodome. The large door stood there, sealed and imposing. He used his access code. A red light flashed. Access denied. Director Park had already revoked his clearance, but Minsu had planned for this. He pulled a small tool from his pocket. It was not a standard issue. Yuna, knowing how isolated he was, had given it to him long ago for emergencies. A universal decoder. He pressed it against the door's control panel. The little device hummed, its lights blinking rapidly. Seconds felt like hours. He kept looking over his shoulder, expecting to see security guards. With a soft beep, the panel turned green. The heavy door hissed and began to slide open. Minsu slipped inside as soon as the gap was wide enough. The warm, humid air of the biodome wrapped around him like a blanket. The crystal trees glowed softly in the dim light. And there she was, Luminara. She was waiting for him. She had felt his fear, his determination. She was glowing with a light he had never seen before, a bright, golden light of anticipation and hope. He ran to her platform, his boots making no sound on the soft moss. "I am here," he said, his voice shaking. "They are sending me away. This is our only chance." He did not need to explain. She understood. A wave of love and acceptance flowed from her, so powerful it almost brought him to his knees. It was not a romantic love. It was a deeper, older love. The love of a weaver for her first thread. The love of a family for a new member. He climbed onto the black rock platform, standing before her immense form. He was so small next to her. He looked up into her large, dark eyes and saw his reflection, tiny and fragile. "I choose connection," he whispered. He reached out and placed his bare hand on the smooth, warm chitin of her central crest. The moment his skin touched her shell, the world dissolved. It was not a gentle merging. It was an avalanche. It was an ocean. A billion thoughts and feelings that were not his own crashed into his mind. He felt the joy of 1,000 hatchlings taking their first flight. He felt the sorrow of 1,000,000 lives being cut short in the war. He felt the simple, daily routines of a hive that had lived in peace for eons. It was too much. The noise was deafening. The colors were blinding. He felt his own self, his own mind, starting to come apart like a sandcastle in a wave. He was drowning. But then, something happened. His human mind, trained for focus and individuality, fought back. It did not fight against the flood, but it started to organize it. He could not stop the ocean, but he could build channels for it to flow. He found a memory of his grandmother and held on to it. He found the feeling of the sun on his face in Busan and held on to it. These simple human memories became his anchors. They gave his mind a shape, a center. He was not being erased. He was being expanded. He felt Luminara's consciousness guiding the flow, helping him, supporting him. She was the weaver, and she was gently weaving his singular, strong thread into the fabric of her being. As their minds joined, Luminara began to move. She lowered her head and began to secrete the crystal resin. But this time it was different. It glowed with the same golden light that surrounded her. She did not build a structure. She began to weave a cocoon. She wrapped the sticky, hardening strands around herself and around Minsu, who stood perfectly still, lost in the world inside his head. The resin was warm and pulsed with energy. It built up around them layer upon layer until they were enclosed in a beautiful golden chrysalis. It was translucent, and from the outside one could see two shadows, one large and majestic, one small and human, glowing from within. At that moment, the alarms began to blare. Red lights flashed throughout the biodome. The door hissed open and Director Park ran in, followed by 4 security guards with electric rifles. "What is this?" the director shouted, staring at the glowing chrysalis. "What has he done?" "Sir, the energy readings are off the scale," one of the guards said, looking at his scanner. "Destroy it," Director Park ordered, his face twisted in anger and fear. "Now!" The guards raised their rifles and fired. Bolts of blue energy shot out and hit the chrysalis, but the energy did not damage it. Instead, the crystal surface absorbed the shots, glowing brighter for a second before returning to normal. "Again, use more power," the director yelled. They fired again and again. It was useless. The chrysalis, fueled by the bond between a human and a queen, was impervious. It was a shield made of hope and connection, and their weapons of fear could not break it. Inside the chrysalis, Minsu was no longer Minsu, and Luminara was no longer just Luminara. They were becoming something new. He felt her ancient wisdom, her vast memory. She felt his human resilience, his capacity for focused love and sacrifice. Together, their minds were creating a new song. A duet. Days passed. The outpost was in a state of panic. They tried everything to break the chrysalis. Lasers, drills, sonic weapons. Nothing worked. The chrysalis just pulsed, glowing brighter with each attempt, as if it was feeding on their aggression. Then, on the 5th day, a deep, resonating crack echoed through the biodome. Everyone outside stopped and watched. A large fracture appeared on the surface of the golden chrysalis. Then another. Pieces of the crystal shell began to fall away, shattering on the ground like glass. From within the broken shell, a new light emerged. It was not just Luminara's gold. It was also a steady, calm blue, the light of a human mind. The last of the chrysalis fell away. Luminara stood, taller and more vibrant than ever. Her star-filled shell shimmered with impossible colors, and her eyes blazed with intelligent light. And standing beside her, one hand resting on her leg, was Minsu. His eyes were open and they glowed with the same soft blue light. He looked calm. He looked peaceful. He looked more himself than he ever had before. He was Minsu, but he was also part of Luminara. He was the weaver's anchor. A human boy from Busan was now the heart of a new hive. For a long moment there was only silence. The security guards stood frozen, their rifles still pointed. Director Park stared, his mouth slightly open, his face a mask of shock and confusion. The scene before him made no sense. The asset was supposed to be docile. The employee was supposed to be gone. This was not in any report. Minsu looked at them. He did not see individuals, not at first. He saw a wave of intense emotions. He felt the guards' fear, their confusion, their urge to follow orders. He felt Director Park's anger, his frustration, and underneath it all, a sharp, cold fear of the unknown. He did not need to speak to Luminara. Their thoughts were one. They knew what the director would do next. Director Park found his voice. It was a strangled, angry sound. "Seize him. Contain the asset." The guards moved forward, their boots loud on the hard floor. They were trained professionals. They moved fast and with purpose. But Minsu and Luminara were faster. It was not a physical speed. It was a speed of thought. Minsu, with his human mind, could process intention. He could see the tiny shift in a guard's weight that meant he was about to lunge. Luminara, with her hive mind awareness, could feel the collective movement of the group. Together they were a perfect system. As the first guard reached for him, Minsu took a simple step to the side. It was a small move, but it was timed perfectly. The guard stumbled past him. At the same moment, Luminara's long tail swept gently in front of the other guards, not to hit them but to block their path. It was like a coordinated dance where only one partner knew the steps. Stop playing games. Subdue them. Director Park yelled from the back, his face red. The guards raised their electric rifles again. They took aim. But before their fingers could tighten on the triggers, Minsu and Luminara acted as one. They did not attack. They reached out with their minds. It was not an aggressive push. It was an opening. They projected a single, powerful wave of emotion. It was the memory of Luminara's loneliness. The deep, hollow silence of years. It was the feeling of Minsu's compassion, his simple human desire to help. And it was the beautiful, overwhelming joy of their connection. They broadcast the entire story, from the first hummed song to the final hopeful bond. The wave hit the guards. One guard lowered his rifle, a look of dazed wonder on his face. Another had tears in his eyes, remembering his own family far away. The third just stood, shaking his head slowly, the anger gone from his body. They could not fight. How can you fight against a feeling of such profound loneliness and such pure connection? Their hostile intent melted away, replaced by a stunned empathy. Only Director Park was left. He was isolated in his control booth, protected by a thick layer of transparent material. He had felt nothing of the psychic wave. He saw his guards standing around, confused and emotional, and his anger boiled over. This is a science outpost. You are a human! You will obey, he screamed over the intercom. His hand moved to a large red button on his console. This is your last chance. Surrender or I will activate the enclosure's self-destruct sequence. We will erase this abomination. Minsu looked at the director through the transparent wall. He felt a pang of sadness for the man. He was so trapped in his own world of rules and control that he could not see the miracle in front of him. Minsu spoke. His voice was calm, but it had a new quality to it. It was layered as if two people were speaking at once in perfect harmony. Director Park, Minsu said, you wanted to study her power. You called it a biological asset. He paused, and the blue light in his eyes seemed to brighten. This is her power. He gestured to the peaceful guards, to Luminara, to himself. It is not a weapon. It is a bridge. You were afraid of her telepathy. You thought it was for control, but it is for understanding. It is for sharing. Humanity's strength is not in our rules or our isolation. It is in our ability to care, to connect with things that are different from us, to build families that are not based on blood but on choice. That is the asset you never understood. That is the power you could never measure in your machines. Director Park's hand hovered over the red button. He was shaking. He looked from Minsu's glowing, calm face to the majestic living queen. He saw the truth in Minsu's words. His whole life was about control and order. This was about something else entirely, something his mind could not process. His hand fell away from the button. He had no words. He just stood there, defeated not by force but by a truth he could not deny. Minsu turned away from him. The fight was over. He walked with Luminara to the center of the biodome. She began to secrete her resin again, but this time, she was not building a chrysalis. She was building a ship. It grew from the crystal of the floor, a beautiful organic vessel that looked like a seed made of light and star stuff. It was a blend of Xilari biology and human design, a product of their joined minds. They did not look back as they boarded the ship. The hull sealed behind them, with a soft humming sound that filled the entire outpost. The ship tore a hole in the roof of the biodome and shot out into the open stars, leaving the silent, broken rules of the outpost behind. Weeks later, on Earth, Yuna was working in her messy room. A priority message alert flashed on her screen. It was from an unknown, encrypted source. She opened it. It was a video file. Minsu's face appeared on the screen. He was sitting in a strange, beautiful room that seemed to be grown from living crystal. Soft golden light pulsed in the walls. He looked happy and healthy. The blue glow was gone from his eyes, but there was a new depth in them, a peace she had never seen before. Yuna, he said, and his voice was his own, warm and familiar. I am safe. I am more than safe. I am home. He told her everything. About the bond. About their escape. He was not a prisoner. He was a partner. Luminara and I, we are not building an empire, he explained. We are not conquerors. We are gardeners, he smiled, a genuine, happy smile. We are looking for others, others who are lost or broken or lonely, species that have been hurt by the galaxy. We want to offer them a choice, a place in a new kind of community, a hive built not on obedience but on the human things you taught me about. Choice, compassion, family. The video ended with a final message. We will be in touch, my friend. The galaxy is big, but we are no longer alone. Yuna leaned back in her chair, a slow smile spreading across her face. She looked out her window at the busy city below. Her friend was gone, but he had become part of something beautiful. He had taken the best parts of being human, kindness, empathy, the need to connect, and had given them to the stars. The galaxy would soon forget the title of the fearsome Xylari Queen. In its place, a new story would be told. The story of the Weaver of Unity and her steadfast human heart.